She was very gentle, very warm, cared about her family deeply. I can't imagine her ever arguing with anybody, ever falling out with anybody. A perfect big sister. And probably we didn't really appreciate her at the time.
Julie Ward was on the adventure of a lifetime when she visited Kenya's Masai Mara in September 1988. But what had been a dream trip driving through Africa turned into tragedy when the 28-year-old was savagely butchered. Most of her body was burned, but the lower half of her left leg, parts of her jaw, and a piece of her scalp were found. The exact circumstances of Julie's brutal death are still not known, despite the best efforts of her father. He devoted his fortune and more than 3 decades of his life to tracking down her killers. I've been looking at this story since last year, and I've managed to speak to many of the key players in the saga, both in the UK and in Kenya.
There had never been such a scenario in the park. It was bad. It was horrific.
The 1 minute you expect to come back after 6 months, the next minute your dad's ringing up saying that they found some chopped up charred remains of her in the middle of nowhere. It's just, you are just numb.
I just wanted to shake his hand, and he showed me his hand, and there are ashes all over his hands, which is a pretty moving kind of experience.
Within the first 5 days, Dad knew something was wrong.
It wasn't actually banned, but I think booksellers were a little bit anxious not to be seen because it talked about some things that the Kenya police perhaps should not have done.
I did wonder whether you'd get anywhere with anybody because, they spent 35 years not saying anything.
One reason it's been so hard to uncover what happened is that someone very powerful may have been involved. He was the son of Kenya's president at the time, and his name is Jonathan Moi.
In those days, during the era of Moi, if one is summoned to go and see the president, one is bound to give so concern. He was a very powerful president.
Tribal alliance can surpass a lot other need for justice, need for the truth.
And Jonathan?
No, Jonathan was just having a track, this one rough.
Like you were running it?
Yeah.
Today we can disclose compelling evidence that puts Jonathan Moi in the frame for the murder.
There was a fear. I get the fear. But there also comes a point where you have a moral judgment to make. And I don't think they've ever made that moral judgment correctly.
The Ward family thinks Jonathan Moi was protected because of a long-running cover-up, and not just by authorities in Kenya. They've also criticised the way that the Metropolitan Police has handled Julie's case, and claimed that back in the 90s, the force made deliberate mistakes.
The complaint that we have in against the Met is that they systematically tried to not find the murderer, therefore perverted the course of justice throughout their investigation.
An independent inquiry found no evidence of a cover-up by the Met, but it was scathing about the quality of their work.
There's no forensics, there's no murder weapon search, the wrong people were interviewed. It's just untenable to think that they could have ended up on the conclusions they ended up with, given the information they had.
Keep an eye on The Telegraph as we shed new light on this decades-old case.